So without further ado, let's get straight into the presentation. So yeah, this is Social Media Trends 2025. And I wanted to sort of preface this by talking about why do I'm interested in this at all? Why am I passionate about social media trends, and why am I even presenting this to you guys? And I think it's important for you guys to know that I really want you guys to succeed in social media. I've just been really impacted by it in my own personal life. I think it's been a great journey so far, using social media to my benefit, the benefit of my clients, also just the benefit of friends and family. And I think it's a great platform. It's a great place to be. It is the place where people spend a lot of their time. So, and I want you guys to succeed, because I do see that brands struggle with it still, people struggle with it still. So I wanted to give you guys some of these tips so that we can all grow together and live a life that, you can, not necessarily battle the algorithms every day. I feel like it's a battle sometimes every day, battling those algorithms. So I want to help you guys sort of beat them, and then not necessarily, relying on these social media gods with reach and engagement. You can kind of break out of that with being a forerunner, and then give you guys more control of your social media. So who the heck am I? Some of you guys might know who I am. Some of you might not. I am the CEO and founder of a social media agency, Kubby. We're based here in Denmark. We have a production agency also in Riga. We've dabbled a little bit in the US market. We don't do a ton of stuff there anymore, but we're starting to look at that again. So that's an exciting journey there. And then I lead a team basically at the agency with the vision of the agency, and then try to help brands get a social media agency that doesn't suck. There's numerous reasons for why an agency might suck. We're not always perfect, but there are better social media agencies than others. What else about me? So I've got a pretty decent following on social media. I know kind of what I'm doing. Years ago, when Snapchat was a thing, and I was early in that game, I was named by Forbes as one of the #1 business gurus on Snapchat. That doesn't really mean anything. That's just good PR, and I get to throw it out here and look special and cool for you guys. I love cigars and tequila. I love tattoos, and normally I'm wearing a cowboy hat or some kind of hat. Today I've got the sixpence on, so no cowboy hat. Sorry, Michael, I know you were looking forward to that, but no cowboy hat today. Sorry. So yeah, that's a bit about me, and I'm Canadian, so Canadian A. I'd like to throw that in there. You might hear me say A few times. And yeah, this is my team. Like over the journey, and you might even see a picture of Sebi up here. He was a part of our team at some point as well. So a lot of people have come and gone, but we're growing, we're moving, we're changing. Basically, we're a fun-loving group of people that are just passionate about social media, passionate about doing things differently, and being creative on social media. So where does this trends come from? Okay, so a lot of these are my opinions. They're based on working in social media for the last 15 years. It's based on data that I see sort of every day. Could I be wrong? More than likely, I will be wrong in these trends. You know how these trends presentations go. But am I wrong? Probably not a chance that I'm wrong. No, I will be wrong on some of these things. But yeah, these are just opinions. Take it, leave it as you were. Like if you feel like, okay, that's not going to happen, or this is going to happen, or I already see this happening, that's great. I hope it helps you guys, and I hope you see that these things come to fruition as well. So trend number 1, let's jump straight into it. Unhinged becomes cringe. So what we've seen over the last 2-3 years, and I think is sparked mostly by TikTok and mostly by COVID actually, is that brands have gone unhinged. They've started to do content that you would call unhinged, crazy. You might have seen this in the news. You might have seen this some of the brands you're working with. Brands like Duolingo, Nutter Butter, Liquid Death, lots of different brands that, or Lotus Cars is another good example, that have done content that is really strange, really weird, not necessarily stuff that's relevant for their brand, for their audience. It's become a place where they're just trying to get attention. And I think that in 2025, we're going to see a move away from this. We're going to see a move towards, I would say, more conservative or more traditional brand voice type stuff. So I think that brands will focus on staying relevant in a relevant way that's for their brand. Because we've seen them try to stay relevant by doing crazy weird things and try to tap into culture. Ryanair is a good example. We all love Ryanair when we think about the golden, social media brand. We think about them. Their content maybe is a little bit more relevant because they talk about their industry. They talk about the pains of travel. So they're a little bit closer to the center. But then you have brands that are just so far away from what they do. And I think we're seeing a movement away from that. So we're seeing towards entertaining content. We love entertaining content, and I'll get into that, but not sludge content, not content that's just there for no reason at all. And why is this happening? I think we're actually seeing more conservative values in the world come back in style. I'm going to talk about the U.S. election a lot in this presentation. I think that that's a watershed moment in culture and in the world, in pop culture, essentially. And I think we're going to see that has informed the rest of the world, or informed certainly marketers that, hey, conservative values are on the rise. And this is going to translate to marketing for sure. And then we're also seeing that this content has been mostly aimed at Gen Z. And I think brands are getting the message that, okay, actually Gen Z are not the buyers here. So even though we're pushing hard to, attract those people on TikTok or other places, they're really not the buyers. They're really not actually filling our wallets and giving us profit and revenue. So brands are going to start looking at, hey, we need to maybe move to doing stuff that's a little bit more relevant for the people that are shopping with us. And that's where I think we're going to head. So I already mentioned, here's some brands that are sort of doing unhinged content, and you can actually see their content moving towards a little bit more conservative, a little bit more traditional brand messaging. They're still being entertaining, but they're kind of staying within their own lane. They've found out, okay, we can't just do crazy stuff anymore. We need to sort of stick with what's relevant for our consumers. Trend 2 is sort of off the back of this. So like I already mentioned, we still need to be entertaining. And this is a good study by Hootsuite. Hootsuite did a good social media trends analysis. You should go download that if you get your hands on it. Basically, it's just looking at and like what's going to happen next year. I don't agree with all of it. Some of it I do. One of these things is that we're seeing that brands that are looking to be entertaining are actually growing, are actually doing a little bit more than traditional brands. So we're seeing this, that there's this sort of breakdown of risk takers, champions, balancers, play it safers, and the 15% that are really creatively constrained. Those of you working for one of those creatively constrained brands, you know what it's like. It's very hard. It's difficult to get any movement in the market. It's difficult to get things going for your brand and actually build awareness. And that's why we're seeing this change. We're seeing brands want to be more entertaining, want to take more risks. And I think humor has been off the table for many, many years. We had a lot of serious, purpose-driven campaigns. We're seeing these go away. We're seeing humor come back into advertising. And I think that's going to be a good positive movement for us who remember sort of the 90s style of advertising. So yeah, entertainment is going to be a big one, but here's how you do it. So I think that to do this properly, you need to use the 3 R's to your advantage. And I say that's reach, relevance, and resonance. And if you find the sweet spot in the middle, you'll have stuff. So the problem with social media is that algorithms have basically pushed controversial stuff, boldness, things that are unhinged, like I mentioned before. And the problem with this is it goes very far away from your brand. You're going to need to get your reach through advertising, through paying for your way. So doing good advertising that's not unhinged, but actually is relevant for your brand, will need to put money behind it. And I'll get more into this trend in a bit. So you're going to need to get that reach. The relevant side is that you're not in the entertainment business. You're in the influencing purchase business. And I'm saying this because I think we're going to see that brands are much more interested in, okay, we're doing this entertaining content, but what does it mean for our dollars? What does it mean for our wallet? As we see the cost of living crisis going up, we see people maybe spending, their spending habits are dropping a bit. They're not spending as much. We're going to see brands really go, okay, what are we doing, and is it actually amounting to money in our bank? The resonance side does actually resonate with the audience that buy and use your product. I mentioned this before, that with the unhinged content is that Gen Z aren't the buyers. It's actually, the millennials like me, older millennials like me, or the Gen Zers, or not the Gen Zers, the sort of the Gen Xers or the baby boomers, so they're the ones with the money. And so we're going to see that this is where brands want to play. They want to be, relevant and resonate with their actual audience that's purchasing. Trend number 3, cinematic content will crush. So what we're finding is actually that everybody's been walking around with an amazing, video recording system in their pocket, publishing content, and we've just been flooded with content. So many people have jumped on building TikToks, Instagram Reels, becoming influencers, becoming personal brands. We've just seen an explosion of content hitting the world, and everyone's walking around with a video, camera and recording camera or recording gear, and also the best editing tools ever, and also AI. And everybody has become a content creator at a certain level. This has then raised the bar for what we consider really good content. And you're seeing that, for example, with content creators like Life of Riza, Alex Safadi, and LA Capture Visuals. These guys and many, many others are paving the way for more cinematic content in a social media style. And you're going to see this if you're a brand, you're going to want to take a look at this and go, okay, maybe we don't do the lo-fi content, because I was pushing lo-fi content for many, many years. Anybody who's seen my presentations, anybody who's worked with me knows that I'm a firm believer in low fidelity content, things shot on the iPhone. But even the iPhone and other programs have started implementing cinematic features, right? Cinematic camera angles, cinematic settings. And this is leading to a quality of production that's way higher, because to break through the noise of everybody's standard content, you have to do something incredible, and it has to look really good. So we're seeing this across the board, that people are starting to produce and make more cinematic content. And as a brand, you can jump in here and be a little bit more cinematic and do stuff that's a little bit more production heavy. Trend 4, move over UGC, here's EGC. So for many years, we've been experiencing UGC, which is user-generated content. I mentioned that in the previous trend, that we've just seen so much UGC over the last few years. So many people creating content. Now we're seeing what we call EGC, which is employee-generated content. So we're seeing that our employees are actually content creators. We've seen a rise in LinkedIn. LinkedIn is growing like crazy. You might have seen this yourself. People like me producing content, others like just so much great content on these platforms. And brands and companies want to tap into this. They want to look at, okay, how do we, because if we post something as a company on our LinkedIn page, we get like 10% of the reach that our employees do. And our employees have way less followers, way less connections. But when we post, we get nothing. But when, Sarah in accounting publishes something, she gets huge amount of reach and huge amount of exposure and engagement. So brands are taking notice of this, and they're saying, okay, we need to have in-house creators that are our employees. And you're starting to see this in the contracts as well that are coming out. I've been very much stalked by recruiters in the last little while, as people are looking for jobs, and I get messages every day from recruiters. And I've seen some of the things that they're looking for and some of the things they're trying to push. And definitely we see this movement towards in-house content creators that are employees. And this is going to be corporately funded. So we're going to see personal brands that are actually funded by big corporations, medium corporations, And the new Gen Z workers are extremely content savvy. So this is what's bringing this up, is that we're just seeing that they're really good at content, and those people are getting hired for those jobs. So if you're a social media manager or you're a marketer looking for a job, if you're really good at content creation, this is also going to help you in the future, because you can be a part of this EGC. And if you're a brand and you want to tap into this, I think it's really important that you get a EGC program, if you want to call it that, or a strategy in place to help your company grow, because you'll get way more engagement and way more reach with your employees. For example, LinkedIn just did a good, I guess you could call it a guide to creating video for the platform. And they give these 5 ways, or 5 content vehicles, buckets, if you will. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. Also, I can send you the report if you DM me on LinkedIn. I can send you guys this full breakdown. It's a pretty good guide on how to create video. But essentially, they're recommending sort of 5 areas: share career tips and work lessons, comment on industry news and trends, share your professional news, take us behind the scenes, or break down company news. So these 5 areas are where I think if you're going to start an EGC program, or you're going to sort of help your employees do this, these are some areas that you guys can work in. So we're seeing this also from LinkedIn side, also from them, like pushing, hey, we want to see more EGC. We want to support this effort, and that's going to be good. Here's some other sort of tips here. The best LinkedIn videos are short. They're under 2 minutes. They're informative. Share your know-how. They're original. Make it your own. And then they're authentic. So let your personality shine through. So this is, for those of you who get into this, personality is going to be a big one. And I'm going to share some more tips on this as in another trend. But personality is going to be a big one. So picking those people that are going to do your EGC is really important. And you're going to have to figure out, how do you let their personality shine? And what are the guardrails, right? Some of the problem areas with this sort of thing is also what happens when they move on to another company. Does that content, is that your own? Is that the company's content? Have they funded it? Like, what, contractually, do they take it all down? What happens if they are unhappy? What if they're a disgruntled worker? Like, there's a lot of considerations in this, and companies are going to have to figure this out in the next little while. The one thing I will say that I don't necessarily agree with in this is this informative share your know-how. I am seeing that this type of content actually isn't performing that well. And I'll get into why I think that is in the next little while. Also, from an agency standpoint, we've actually started to build a sort of a division around this idea, the idea of squad content, like helping brands figure out how do they get their team activated, how do they do EGC within their company. So we're launching this thing called Squad Content, which is stories powered by your team, and essentially mapping out the strategy, mapping out the production schedule, the content schedule, and helping brands get their employees out there and how to do it. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, hit me up. I can point you towards some content that we're working on in this area. Trend 5. So I mentioned this a little bit about know-how, sharing your know-how in the last trend. Trend 5 is actually, we're seeing the death of thought leaders and the birth of life leaders. Now, what the heck is that? So what we're seeing is, I'm just going to switch my slides up over here so I know where I'm at. So what we're actually seeing is that because there's so much knowledge out there on how to do things, how to create a viral TikTok post, how to write a blog, how to do SEO, how to, the list that just goes on and on and on of different tips, tactics, tricks. And what we're seeing is actually these types of content is actually not performing that well. We're actually seeing what we call more life leadership. And you might have noticed this on LinkedIn yourself. You might see, posts that are more in this zone, where you're sharing content about you, the places you are, the people you work with, the passions that you have. And I see George, he's nodding here because he agrees. But yeah, you definitely see this move towards people are not sharing or the content that's not getting through is the, hey, do you want to know how to do this? Here's 5 tips for better copywriting, or here's, what I've learned about ad buying, or those pieces of content are actually not getting the reach. It's the content about non-educational stuff. And I think it's because we've gotten drained by how much educational content there is out there. And we're more interested in, how do I improve my life? How do I have a better life? How do I aspire to a different life, or whatever, a lifestyle? And instead of, how do I do my job 2% better? Right? That's not really what people are passionate about. They want to know, how do I have work-life balance? How do I travel and work? How do I work from, how do I live a life that I want to live? And people are doing that through a little bit of voyeurism of watching what other people are doing. So it's, don't educate your audience. I know I'm doing that right now. I'm sorry about that. I'm not a good model. Don't follow what I do, because I clearly don't take my own advice. But don't educate your audience. Share content about you, the places you are, the stages you were, if this was like a play, the people, the characters in your life, and the passions that you share, and share content about your unique ways of doing things and why those are the best ways. I see Renata giving me some love there. Thanks, Renata. So you can wrap some education in this share content about your unique ways of doing things, but it has to be in that way. It has to be in, hey, this is my, this is where I'm at today. This is what I'm doing. This is how I would do this in relation to that. So it's kind of a weird way around it. So you can still educate, but it's very much a, it's not from a tips, hacks, tricks, educational format. It's from a, this is my life. I'm living a reality TV show sort of thing. I'm a Kardashian. I know we all want to be a Kardashian. And this is my life, and it's on display for you here. A good example of this is the personal brand journey that we've seen from Mark Zuckerberg. So this is like pure LinkedIn, or pure life leadership, right? So we've seen Mark Zuckerberg be this guy for so many years, the guy on the right, and now he's very much transformed into this more of a guru life coach kind of guy, who we're seeing how his life is. We're seeing him do jujitsu. We're seeing him dress nice. We're seeing him, his lifestyle, what he's interested in. And this is what we're seeing across many social media platforms. It's less and less about how can I educate you, and more about how can I show you a life aspiring, like a life to aspire to. We good? You guys hanging in there? Love it. Sticking with, thanks guys. Thanks Hal. Thanks Irina. Thanks Pedro. So sticking with Mark Zuckerberg here, and going back to the US election, freedom of speech is a huge trend, and will be for 2025. We're going to have lots more discussions about this, and it really came off the back of Twitter, being bought by Elon Musk, and the latest election put freedom in the spotlight, and misinformation, disinformation. These things are actually kind of, I would say, going away, going in the background. We're still going to talk about these things, but they're going to be maybe masked or talked about in the light of, well, that's just freedom of speech. And we're actually going to see platforms open up more, be less clamping down on what gets through and what doesn't get through. Because as a competitive marketplace, if Twitter or X is where people are hanging out more, they're spending more time there. Now there is a backlash to that. People are moving to Blue Sky and things like that. So we're going to see that as a competitive environment, is it better for a social media app to be more on the freedom of speech side, less, clamping down on misinformation or disinformation, or is it going to be better to keep clamping down on those? And I think you're going to see that this plays out, that apps that are more for freedom of speech will actually rise and be the places that people want to spend more time in. So yeah. And brands will have to, will have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of the campaigns they're throwing out. I go back to this entertainment sort of trend that I think we're going to see brands spend a lot more time doing content that you would say is a little bit more old school and more conservative. Trend number 7, you can't get around this. Video is the biggest thing that you should be doing as a brand. If you're not spending time making videos, you're missing out. And I think this is really important for brands, that if you don't have in-house creative video teams, or if you're not spending a lot of money with agencies to make video, you really need to get this going in 2025. A good example here is just from some recent studies from Insider Intelligence, from Insider Intelligence, just talking about how much share of daily social media network time is spent on video. It's estimated it's going to be about 60% of people's time. So when they're on social media, what are they looking at? And 60% is going to be video. So if you're a brand and you want attention, you have to be able to create content and create it pretty fast and get it out there. And if we look at a study done by Hootsuite, what different platforms are people spending most of their time on? TikTok and YouTube are the big ones, and those are almost purely video platforms. TikTok has some carousels and some images, but it's really not the pervasive content that you find on that platform. So if these are the main platforms out there and those are heavily video, then as a brand, if you're not investing most of your money and most of your energy in video, I think you're going to be missing out big time. So video, you cannot get around it. It has to be talked about. We're moving right along here. I love it. I want to be done a little early. Trend number 8. AI is overrated and underwhelming. So listen, I'm a big proponent. I see Michael laughing, but listen, I'm a big fan of AI content. I think, AI in general. I think there's a lot of cool things that are happening with AI. I think we're all following the market, going, what is going on here? Is it going to be, is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? Is it taking my job? I think a lot of people are concerned, and rightly so. I mean, I've definitely seen a big push from brands to hire, instead of hiring, actually like use AI instead. A good example is, Coca-Cola just came out. How many people, just give me a thumbs up, how many people saw the new Coca-Cola Christmas ad? Michael saw it, Juliana. Okay, so a few people have seen it. Okay, so is Xenia, hi. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, go take a look at it. It's quite interesting. It's almost like they one for one tried to replace their old campaign, their old Christmas ad with AI focused ones. And they definitely got the conversation going, because the thing is that AI, if it's not better than what we can produce without AI, then I don't think there's a real point in that, other than brands are trying to save money. And I think we have a big problem with that, especially as the cost of living crisis goes up, as unemployment might be going up, as we see marketers with less jobs. I think that we're going to see a backlash towards brands that are actually using AI. A good one was Mango, a clothing company, was just recently slammed as using AI in their content. And I'll just pop up, actually go forward a couple more instead. So Mango, they did a summer campaign. Actually, this was before. They did a new one. This is not the new one, but they did a new one where they're using AI models, right? And the big backlash is, well, this is somebody's job. This is models' jobs. This is, set designers. This is photographers' jobs. This is cosmetic people's jobs, like makeup people's jobs. This is a ton of people's jobs that are just going away because you want to create something fake and something that's, interesting now, but it doesn't really contribute to the world at large. And there's a big pushback for this. And then you're going to see that actually brands that are focused on using AI sparingly, they're using it in pre-production, only a little bit in post. We're going to actually see that there's a pushback from consumers who want to buy from brands who don't use AI. Because the truth of the matter is that marketers, we want to make content with AI, but I don't think consumers don't want to consume it. Like, they don't want to consume that AI content. We can see that with the Coca-Cola thing. We can see it with the Mango thing. So I think in 2025, we're going to actually see a pushback against it, and less brands are going to be doing AI type of content, and they're going to go back to the real authentic stuff. I could be wrong on this one. This is the one where I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. Like there's a real driver towards using AI. And I think like for insights, I think for getting good strategy work, initial strategy ideas, uh, basically analyzing big parts of data to figure out, okay, what do consumers even want? What messages really resonate with them? I think AI is fantastic. I think we're missing the boat, or missing the reality of it if we're going to continue making stuff with AI. So we're going to see an AI reset. Trend number 9, social media ad spend is on the rise. So I mentioned at the beginning that if you're going to do more traditional advertising, like I think unhinged content becomes cringe, you're going to have a harder time breaking through organically. And we see this with also the data on the ad spend side. Even though there's a cost of living crisis, even though that, inflation is up, we're still seeing ad spend go through the roof, right? In 2024, it was estimated that we'll be at about $234 billion US, which is up than less than $98 billion only five years earlier. So that's an increase of 140% in half a decade. That's crazy. Like we're just seeing it explode across the board. So social media ad spend will continue to rise also as brands struggle to compete against the content creators of the world to get your content out there. And I think that we're going to see many brands go, okay, we give up on organic. We're done. We'll let content creators have that. We're just going to spend our way into the feed. But you'll still see small brands. I think like you'll see small challenger brands try this, but I think we've also seen this in the agency. A lot of our clients are doing about I would say, I know Kamal's here, it's maybe a 60-40, 70-30 split. It's higher. Okay. He's like 80-20. Is it 80% paid media and 20% content? Yeah. So we're seeing that even on our client side that they're spending 20% of their budgets on content creation and 80% on their paid media spend. That just goes to show you that they're really focused on, okay, we've got the content. Maybe it's okay. It's not the greatest, but it's okay. It's good. Now we want to like make sure that people see it. We're not going to rely on the social media gods anymore, the algorithmic gods to make sure that we see it. We're gonna push it through, and we're gonna spend our way to the reach and the relevance. So keep this in mind. I think you're going to see much more ad spend, and I think as a brand owner, a brand manager, if you're not already thinking about, okay, I need this 80-20 split or 70-30, whatever you decide to do. If you haven't allocated that in your budgets, you should probably do that for 2025 to make sure that you're on top of things. Trend number 10, celebrity culture is dying. Long live celebrities. So I say this as a little bit of a joke because I do think we definitely saw this going back to the US election again, that celebrities are not as influential as they used to be. But I think celebrity has moved. And for brands, I think if you're using spokespeople, if you're trying to use celebrity culture in your advertising, I think you're going to see that you'll get more bang for your buck with the new celebrity, which are content creators. A good example is what happened with the US election here with Kamala Harris and having a large amount of a large amount of celebrities endorsing her. Everyone from Taylor Swift to Billie Eilish, Oprah, George Clooney, Mark Cuban. I mean, the list goes on and on. Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B. We had a lot of people in the celebrity world endorse her, and it didn't necessarily translate to influencing votes. Now, you could argue that's totally different than brands. I would argue that the president is a product that gets sold and a brand that gets sold out there. So I always love watching elections because it really showcases what is going on with media, what is going on with branding, personal branding, product sales. It really showcases, and they spend billions of dollars. I mean, Kamala, the estimate is that Kamala spent $1 billion. They estimate that Donald Trump spent $500 million or something like that. So there's a lot of money going into these campaigns, and it's essentially big, giant marketing campaigns. And I love to see how this operates. And we definitely didn't see that paying or using celebrities, whether or not it was paid for, who knows, but using celebrities didn't translate into actual sales. And I think that's a good thing, or not a good thing. I think that's a good thing to watch out for in your marketing strategies. Another good example is we just saw the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. And the reason why George is like, oh my God, yeah, probably the worst fight ever. But yeah, everyone's like, this is a horrible fight. But the hype alone, like, I mean, this really goes to show you that we have a non-celebrity, and I mean, you could argue that Jake Paul is not a celebrity or is a celebrity because he's an influencer, but it just goes to show you how far we've come in the culture here, that you have 108 million global live viewers of this. And you could say Mike Tyson was the draw, but I think it's also the spectacle that Jake Paul is. And I think what you're seeing is that across the board, that content creators and influencers have way more power than we're giving them credit for. Like they really are a driving force in branding, marketing, media. And if you aren't utilizing them today, you really need to look at a strategy for 2025 to say, okay, even if it's small micro creators or people, like, it doesn't have to be these giant people like Jake Paul. You just have to look at, okay, who has an audience, who has the ear of the people, because it's not necessarily going to those newscasters that you see on TV or those actors or those musicians anymore. It actually would get you a farther way forward is if you're looking at creators, influencers. And I know influencer marketing has been a huge trend for many years. I just really see it as the nail in the coffin here for celebrities, is that we're seeing that these influencers are really making huge influence in the industries. Last trend, guys, bonus trend, number 11. And then we'll open it up for any questions that you guys might have. So community is king, queen, and God, but it's fractured. So we're seeing that community is the driving force of brands these days, but it's really hard to grab your hands around community. People are, and the reason why is, like, people are struggling with connection, and they're really turning to brands for meaning. Like, what brands am I interested in? What community am I in? And the thing is that people belong in many different groups and in many different categories. I might be a cigar-loving tequila drinker who does social media for a living, but I also listen to ghost story podcasts and occult podcasts, even though I don't believe in ghosts. So it's like, what kind of category am I in? And I think this is going the same for many people. We have many interests, and it's fractured. So you don't belong in one group anymore. You belong in multiple groups. So brands are having a hard time figuring out who is our community, who is our audience, who is our buyers. And I think there's some work to be done in figuring that out. But one thing that I can guarantee will help is actually what we call proactive community management. So we're seeing a ton of brands dive into being proactive in the comments. So it used to be that you would just do reactive stuff, right? Get engagement or get engagement on your post, and you would reply, hey, thanks for the message, or heart emoji or whatever. Because brands are not seeing as much engagement on their content as they used to, they're going out to popular content and commenting instead, which makes total sense, like from a strategic standpoint, saying, okay, nobody's watching our stuff because maybe Facebook doesn't want to get it out there because they know we're a brand and we can pay for it. So instead of waiting for comments to come on our content and replying, we're going to go out and find that content, do some social listening, find stuff conversations that we want to be a part of, and we're going to engage. So we're seeing that. I think in 2025, we're going to see that more brands say, okay, community management, we need that, but it's not about replying to comments anymore. Yes, we have to do that. Like, that's a bare minimum. Now it's about going out and being proactive about it. And I think this will hit you guys as you start to build your brand, or you're looking at building a brand, you'll find, okay, we need to get more attention for ourselves. How do we do that? Okay, let's go to the comment sections of many of the big posts. And it'll require that you have a social listening capability in-house to be able to find when things are trending, when things are popping off, when things are fitting within your category, and going out there and being a part of those conversations. So, employing some social listening tools, or having people in-house that can do that, or, utilizing your agencies to do that for you. We offer proactive community management as well. So if you're looking for that, let me know. We also have a model for how much it should cost, because it can be a little bit like, well, you need a copywriter because you have to write something interesting, right? That's the other part, is like, okay, it's not just about someone just going out and writing stuff. If you want to get engagement, you're going to actually have to have a copywriter that knows that your brand, knows the tone of voice, knows the culture of what they're posting on, because a lot of tone deaf comments can actually get you in trouble. So it's actually kind of a complex thing. I don't want to scare you guys away from it. I think it's a really good methodology and a really good strategy, but it does get a bit complex, because you're like, okay, what do we write that doesn't sound stupid and actually gets engagement on that engagement? So yeah, that's the big next trend that we're seeing. So guys, thank you so much for joining. I hope this gave you guys, thanks, George. I hope you guys got something great out of this. I hope it gave you some information, some stuff to think about. Kamal, one of my guys is are you selling in the DMs, Kamal? Another tip for community manager: if you're doing it in-house, find a suitable tool that can help you centralize comments from all channels like Brandwatch. Yeah, I totally agree. It can get a little crazy if you're doing it manually and if you don't have a place. And it's also good when you have a tool to get a sentiment analysis of those comments and to figure out, because if you're also getting replies on your replies, you need some sort of analysis of, is this actually working? So you can do a lot of it manual if you're just getting started. But I would say, some of the campaigns that we're running for, if they've got, a couple $1 million or a couple million Danish krona of ad spend, you're going to have a certain number of comments, and you need to be able to handle those and manage those effectively, and then report on that, so your management knows, okay, yeah, that money we spent on community management, that was worth it, because this is the trust that was built with the brand. This is the the sentiment analysis. This is how we move the brand forward. So thank you guys so much for joining. I'd love to take some of your questions. You can unmute yourself and ask, or that might be a little bit chaotic because there is 50 plus people here. So maybe it's better to write it in the chat, and then I can sort of take it. Or you can put up your hand. Actually, that might be a good one, and I'll try to answer you guys. Let's do that. So Matt Hubs says, thank you for some great. Sorry, I missed the start. Did you mention the recording we've made it? Yes, the recording will be made available to you guys. I just have to figure out how to DM a bunch of you guys. I know I DM'd you guys with a reminder. I'll set something up as well, but it might take a couple days for all the messages to go out. So yeah. Anybody else have any questions? No questions. Okay. What is your top tool for creating engaging short form video content for LinkedIn? So Amanda, from a scripting standpoint, I feel like the best tool is my brain. But from a sorry, and then also like using ChatGPT as a sparring partner. So oftentimes when I've got a good idea, or I always ask ChatGPT to give me a counterintuitive answer to this. So, or a sort of a non-traditional approach to something that I'm like, I take a look at that and say, okay, does that fit my ethos? Does that fit what I think about it? And then sometimes I'll use it, sometimes I won't. So ChatGPT is my sparring partner in terms of creative ideas. In terms of editing, I mean, I can't espouse the amazingness that is CapCut enough. Like CapCut is such a incredible editing tool, even the free one, and the paid one isn't that much either. I think it's $10 a month or something like that. But from a content editing standpoint, CapCut is just incredible. It has almost everything. It has AI caption creating. It has good effects, transitions, super easy to use. It's got music built in. So from a quick editing standpoint of EGC, that is certainly the way to go. Did that answer your question? Maybe. So
yes, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, cool. And then EGC, do the employees have to add announce when they post about their work? This is a very good question, Amelia. So I am not totally sure what the laws are yet on this. And I don't think anybody knows what the laws are on this, if that is a sponsored post or not, because technically they're an employee. So all posts that you make today, even if you're not, would be a sponsored post. So this is where, there's a bit of a gray zone. This is also why sometimes brands will actually hire influencers on their board of directors, and they'll get around sort of the ads announce thing because they're an employee. It's not necessarily that they've paid to sponsor that post. So I think this is a gray zone. I think you're going to find out that there will be legislation about this in the future. But for now, it's kind of the Wild West, and you can kind of do what you want. Don't quote me. I'm not a lawyer, but that's what I've sort of seen. Mayfield asks, with these trends in mind as a content strategist, how do you then best pitch yourself to show you can provide value to brands? Essentially, what skills should you highlight? Okay, so this is an interesting one. I think brands are very much some brands are very much like, show us that you know how to create content that works. So a lot of times what we want to see is actually you doing it for yourself. So if you're out there building content for yourself as a content strategist and building those skills and showcasing, okay, this is the reach I got with this is the engagement I got with this. As a content strategist, that's the best thing that you can do, is literally show proof. Here's what I've done. And that's the reality of what we're living with in social media, is that you can publish something and know exactly, does it work or not. So so that's what I would do, Mayfield, is I would literally start building your personal brand and showcasing, here's how I do it. Here's the proof.
That's so good. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Carson said, I think the cinematic becomes a condition. You take it for granted, probably also because AI will flood the market with content. But going forward, it will be about creating content that evokes real situations. It will be about creating a storyboard where authenticity is evoked, real emotions, real interactions between people. Yeah, I think that we're seeing this reality. We're seeing this more real connection thing. We're seeing this, this move towards more, authenticity. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I think we're going to see this. And that's what we saw with the Coca-Cola ad. Most people were like, this thing has no heart at all. And for a Christmas ad to not have heart is death of that ad. And I think that's a misstep by Coca-Cola, a big misstep. And I think that they should quickly fix this and probably go shoot something with some heart really fast, because it's not a good look. Julia asks, any advice with sounds for content IG and TikTok in terms of copyrights? And it shouldn't sound like walking into an elevator. Okay, so this is a copyrighted material. I mean, we're just seeing brands get sued left, right, and center. We've been on the side of this a couple of times, where brands or what do you call them, like music publishers, have said, hey, that's illegal, that's copyright, pay us. So we're seeing this now, is that brands are getting sued by the big publishers. I think you can find the news about all of this. But yeah, so stay away from copyrighted sounds. Now, if you're a big brand, because then they go, and I think my conspiracy theory, you guys want to hear a conspiracy theory? Yeah. My conspiracy theory is that the platforms are helping the music publishers, because so much content is published online every day. How do you sort out who's using the copyrighted music and who is a brand, not just a creator? And then on top of that, who has the money to pay you as a publisher? Because there's tons of mom and pop shops, like a dental, company, a dentist down the street. no music publisher wants to go after them. But if you're a Coca-Cola, if you're a brand of any decent size, making millions of dollars in revenue a year, then it makes sense for a music publisher to go after you, probably because you have some insurances, probably because you have some lawyers behind you as well. So I think that the platforms are feeding the brands, or not the brands, but feeding the music publishers the data of who to go after and saying, here, these guys have violated copyright law, go for it. So that's my conspiracy theory on that side. So if you want good content or good music, Artlist, I'll put it in the Artlist. I mean, there's lots of different music places, but artlist.io is a good one. Even there's sounds within, like non-copyrighted sounds within, or music within CapCut, for example, is a good one. But we use this. And then there's also, oh my God, I'm forgetting the name right now, but it's Epidemic, I think it's called. Epidemic Sound is also a good one that we use that has some good music. Yeah, Epidemic. Yeah, someone already wrote it. Okay, sorry. There we go. So yeah, thanks, Irina. That's a good one. I agree. One last question, guys, and then I'll let you go. How can ICP best be adjusted to social channels and thereby split budget? Buyers move between channels, but where will the best be influenced? Yeah, LinkedIn might be growing, but its influence may be declining. This is a really good question, Michael. I don't have a good answer for you. I wish I did, because the thing is that nobody sort of knows, other than if you put stuff into a big attribution model and figure out what is actually driving purchase decisions. And if you have that data, I mean, there are, the thing is that there's giant systems nowadays, like driven by AI, that will take all of your media buy and run it through some predictive models and understand, okay, what is actually going to drive purchase decision, what's going to influence more. But I've gotten a few demos of them and I'm like, these are impossible. Like they don't have any, like the data is so limited in what you can get nowadays. Like it's not good replicatable data. It's sort of giving you just okay, we think TV gives you a better lift on influence, and that's it. That's all it can do, really. So I would say, guess, test, try. I've seen that the creator, like I mentioned before, influencers or creators, I've seen that the creator thing does really, really work well for driving influence to purchase, and then mixing that with really good, insightful content. We go to Reddit. So just for you guys, like Reddit's a treasure trove of consumer data. People, like, you just go and search there. If you're like selling an energy drink, or you're selling, I don't know, tights or a yoga pants or whatever, going in there and understanding what people's pains are regarding yoga pants will give you so much insight into what you should use in your advertising and what you should push on. I cannot stress this or give you guys a big enough tip here, and that is, like, Reddit is fantastic. It is a gold mine for consumer insights. So go do that. Try to find out what do people actually care about and what are they interested in. Use that in your advertising. That'll influence purchase decision. Great. Kamal, also, Kamal, you had a point here. Do you want to say it out loud?
Yeah, sure. It was in relation to copyrighted music. I just wanted to add that they can also come and look at your channels retrospectively. So it's also a good idea just to go back a few years and see if you've used any copyrighted music, because just because you haven't heard from them yet does not mean that they can't knock on your door in the future. So that was it.
Yeah.
And then I just also, I can see Carsten had a really interesting question as well. He talked about doing professional photography and how that also, is being challenged by these formats that are more, I would say, lo-fi. When you look at TikTok stuff that is way more, handheld footage and more lo-fi in that sense. And what I've seen on the platforms is that those creators who are really into the old school, I would say, aesthetics and photography, find a way to mix that with the new school formats. So just to give you an example, you see these street photographers on the street walking around asking people to take their picture, doing all of that handheld behind the scenes, but then they transition and show the actual aesthetic pictures they're taking with the camera. So that's a good way of, mixing the two worlds. And I think that's also how you should look at the channels. How are people actually, consuming content and figuring a way to angling that into your, I would say, aesthetic niche as well. So yeah, very specific answer to Carsten's question there.
Yeah, but it's a good one. It is a mix, right? We're seeing that mixed media across the board. And we're also seeing a movement towards, I would say, that's a good example where this guy is like, has a person filming with him as he's doing photography. We're seeing more and more content, like somebody's following somebody around. It's like, because then the level, it's not just necessarily that it's cinematic, but the level is that, oh, you've actually paid somebody to be an extra video person on your team following, this person around. And so from the EGC side as well, I'm going to see not just you're not going to just see people doing selfie style videos for their companies. You're going to see like actual videographers following those employees around and getting that sort of content and leveling it up that way. So great. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really, really appreciate you guys being here. I hope these tips and these trends help you guys out, give you some insights into what we're seeing now and also for 2025. And I will send out a mail so you can have this recording. And then we will see you guys in the next one. Okay. Bye, guys.